add a class. Suppose my class name is user detailer. So I have defined already some of the properties. I will copy paste it there. Save it and then go to controller. Some of the annotations you have to add namespace system.component_model.data annotations. Then it will take, otherwise it will show error. Now let's save it, and here also we will have one functionality. Let's say public string save user detail and user detail some object name. Here also I'm not writing much functionality. You assume that it is communicating with database. Okay, when I teach any of the new concept, not necessarily every time we have to do the database activity, you understand, okay, which is not much important to discuss. That I will simply say here like this. Assume we take the object USR and save into database, because that is not important for this topic. So let's go to our user detail model annotations and first understand what are these annotations all about. You can see here I wrote one annotation called required. Required indicates it is mandatory. If somebody is not entering anything, then what error message it should show, I can mention here. If you are not mentioning anything, this is optional. Error message property is optional. If you don't mention anything, it has one default message also. It will mention the property user ID is mandatory or the property user ID is required. Like that, it will give some default message. But if you want, you can add it also. This is for every annotations. Optional parameter, but you can add it if any. Regular expression. Regular expression says format label, data format label expression. So when I say A to Z, capital A to Z, it will say only alphabets are allowed, either small or capital. Let me take you to that notepad and few things I'll tell you about it. So this says only alphabets are allowed. Okay. If I will say simply A to Z without plus symbol, then that will indicate only alphabet allowed, but only one character. Any, I'll say any one character allowed, but alphabets only 1, 2, 3, 4 and all you cannot type. Only A to Z or A to Z. Without plus means only one character, plus means any number of character. Now suppose you want to say similarly, if somebody says only A to Z, that means only small letter A to Z, square bracket close. This will say only one character allowed, that too any one small letter alphabet is allowed. no numeric, nothing, only small letter, one alphabet, like that. Similarly, A to Z plus means only small letter, any number of characters. Then we have, suppose I want to say number also allowed, alphanumeric, then A to Z, capital A to Z, 0 to 9. Okay, it will understand like 2. Okay, 0 to 9, A to Z, A hyphen small z means small a to z. So this will allow only one character with numeric as well as alphabet, any one character. But if you say plus, any number of alphanumeric characters are allowed, right? Now sometimes we allow some special character also. We will say that acha, A to Z, 0 to 9, capital or small, everything allowed. And from special characters, only 3-4 character is allowed, suppose. Then those 3-4 character you have to mention. So the square bracket indicates optional characters. I maintained it doesn't mean that definitely I have to enter 0 or 1 or 2. You can. Okay, this is called you can. Square bracket means if you remove the square bracket, indicates you have to. Okay, it is mandatory to enter at least one alphabet, at least one capital letter, at least one 0 to 9 number. So if you remove this square bracket, so square bracket indicates optional, but you can. So should I say underscore? Acha, remember, if you want to allow dash as a character, special character, you should not write it in between. Imagine somebody says, I want to write A and Z. This meaning is what? Numbers are allowed, small letter everything allowed, but capital letter only A and only Z is allowed. So in between, if you write that dash is allowed, then it will understand in different meaning. So you have to check whether it is giving a different meaning to the sequence of characters. But if I will say here dash, it doesn't have any special meaning left and right. So it will understand it as dash as a character allowed, right? So underscore dash ampersand. Suppose I said 3 character, then it will understand this 3 character additional will be allowed apart from whatever the range of the character given here. So small a to z allowed, capital A to Z allowed, all numbers allowed, and among the special character underscore dash and ampersand is allowed. Something like that you can mention. And sometimes I will say these are all not allowed. Okay, not allowed. If you want to say not allowed, then you have to write, little differently. Like you have to say not allowed all this. So, but if you say square bracket this, allowed means it will check plus is there or not after that square bracket closing. If plus is there, any number of characters allowed, but not anything mandatory. It will check the range. If range is A to Z, if somebody is typing capital A or capital B or capital C, it is allowed. When we say allowed, that meaning is not a mandatory stuff, but you can. Okay. So what should I write here? I can say all alphabets or all alphanumerics and 3 special character, that is underscore, dash and ampersand are allowed. That to any number of character because I have given plus symbol. There is something called starts with and ends with. Suppose you said like this, I said A to Z. Okay. So that indicates any one alphabet between A to Z. But that any one alphabet, you want to say suppose it should start with, that word should start with this A to Z, or that word should start with capital A to Z, something like that. So whichever sequence or whichever character you want to say that it should start with, just before that you put a cap symbol. Check it out, somewhere some cap symbol will be there. In my keyboard it is above 6, numeric number 6. Check it in your laptop, wherever this cap symbol will be there. So cap A to Z, that means your word should start with small a to Z. After that, if I have like capital A to Z also, it's fine. That is not told as start with. Start with any alphabet or any sequence. Suppose here I wrote only K. That indicates it should start with small alphabet K. Okay. Simply I removed it. The word should start with capital alphabet A to Z, anyone. So like that it will give the meaning. So here suppose I said afterwards A to Z, that means that starts with will not be applicable for this small A to Z, it will be applicable for this sequence of characters, or range of characters. Here we give plus. When we give plus, what it does, any number of alphabet, that means no restriction, 10 character, 20 character, no restriction. But sometimes we say no, I have restriction. Out of this range of character, allowed character, I want only 3 character. Sometimes you say .com, .edu, .in, only 2 character, only 3 character, like that. So that time, instead of giving plus, you have to give it like this. Imagine you want to allow only 3 character, then you write curly bracket 3 character. Okay. So if you want to say either 2 or 3 character, then you write number of character 2 also allowed, number of character 3 also allowed. So this time it will not understand as now alphabet 2 is allowed. Alphabet or keystroke 2 and number of character 2, both are two different things. So curly bracket means it will understand whatever sequence has been given before, in that range of sequence anything is not allowed, any number of character, rather only 2 character or only 3 character is allowed. That is the meaning of this. So in email you can give this for .com, .edu, .in. As of now it has seen that either it is 3 character or it is 2 character. .uk, .us, abc.uk, abc.in, abc.com, abc.edu. So it has seen that either 2 or 3, but not necessarily. It is not an international rule as of now that only 2 character or 3 character will be the .com or .net or .edu, but as of now it is going on. In future, suppose they will say no, .abcd also allowed, then you can say comma 2, comma 3, comma 4 also. Okay. So how many character means curly bracket, what range of character or what character means square bracket, and without any bracket means mandatory to enter that character, and plus means any number of character, and within curly bracket in number means it will check the left side what is the range of the character allowed, and that many characters uh, can be written. But once 2 character or 3 character is over, then it should say stop. Okay. Another thing, so here let me write that meaning. So as per given range of allowed keystroke, or I will say characters, it will here 2 and 3 indicates only that many characters are allowed. Make sense? Then comes ends with, starts with we say cap. Okay. So I will do one thing, I will make it 2 part. So this is called starts with, and dollar is called ends with. So if you say anything, let's say A to Z you are saying, or 0 to 9 or anything. Now you want to say in this range A to Z it should end. Which ends with means right after that character or after that range of character you put a dollar, it will understand it should end with that sequence or that character. Somebody says only P should be ended character, then P, P dollar, right? Whatever you type doesn't matter, but it should end with P. So whatever you type doesn't matter means plus came into picture, right? So here also I will say plus came into picture because any number of character is allowed. So here I will say ends with P. Whatever character you give or whatever range of character you give. If you will say A to Z, then you are saying capital A to Z should be ends with. And not necessarily this dollar should be at the end. It can, after this also you can say 0 to 9 and all that, okay, because those are also you want to allow, but on what sequence you want to ends with, that you have to give. So dollar says ends with, cap says starts with, and this curly bracket says how many number of characters. I think this will be enough for you to have a basic knowledge to start with. After that, if you have any complicated sequence coming in picture and you are confusing, then apply it and check it whether it is allowing. But this is the basic fundamental. I think this will be enough for making any sequence of number of characters. So let me give it to you as a separate notepad. I will write it as regular expression. Okay, in short form we say regex underscore txt. So that is, here I wrote A to Z, A to Z, that indicates only alphabet is allowed, but any number of character is allowed. Sometimes we give data type. Data type means anything should not be allowed in that date format or that integer format or that decimal format. Okay, whatever data type you give, it should allow the data. Like currently, suppose you have written like this. Okay, so after all it is going to give a text box. So in that text box anybody can enter anything. So if you are giving this annotation, it will say that no, unless that is a proper data type of date, I will not allow. Display name, sometimes we need, let me tell you when we need display name. Display name equal to something. Imagine you are creating one scaffolding view for this particular model. So what happens? Whatever you might have defined the property, it will define same only. But somebody says address is the actual property name, okay, to manage with the programming side. But on the screen in the browser to display, I don't want to display address. I want to display as a label called street address or permanent address or temporary address, okay, or current address. So something like that you want to mention on the labeling part. When you do scaffolding view, that time you might have seen automatically it generates one label for that text box. So by default that label will be always same as your property name. But if you give display name equal to something, then for display purpose it will be street address, but for internal programming purpose, for data transportation, data initialization, data saving, etc., it will take address. Only for labeling you can say display name equal to something. And by default, if you don't mention anything, it is display name equal to this by default. So if you are not writing anything, but if you want something other than that, then you have to mention it. Range. If it is a numeric or date range, decimal range, some range which is meaningful, there you can take this range. Don't take range for number of character range. Okay, number of character range is a separate. String length or max length, like that you can use, but this time we are saying range. This is only applicable for numeric, date time, etc. So this input, minimum and maximum can be either numeric, like round number integer, can be decimal, can be date also, two dates. If you are entering two dates, then within double quote you have to enter two dates, and that will also applicable. Based on what data type here in line number 20, it will understand this is integer range or date range or what range. But string, if you are mentioning, this will not consider. That has a separate number of characters, min length and max length separately you have to give, but this is not allowed. Acha, any one property can have multiple annotations also. Okay, like you said, it is required also. Somebody should not leave it blank, and if it is typing, it should take this regular expression also. That means a required validator as well as your regular expression validator, both annotations should be present here. So any one property also can have multiple annotations if required. String length. Everywhere error message, as I said, it is optional. If you want to give, your message will display. If you don't give, then one default message will display taking this property name. Something like entered age is invalid, something like that. One generic message there. Entered designation is invalid, entered address is invalid, like that. Something by default it will give some default message, but if you give your own message, then your message will be overwritten with that default message. String length, it is only applicable for string. If it is different data type and you are providing string length, it will show error again. So if it is string and you are providing string length, it will say that maximum how many number of character. But if you want to provide min length and max length, that is also available. So sometimes we say minimum, not a mandatory, maybe one character, maybe 0 character also. But max length, I have some restriction, suppose, then you have to go for string length. But if you have min as well as max length, then two annotations you have to provide. One is min length, one is max length. Again, error message is optional. So these are few annotations we provided. Now what we'll do is, we will generate one auto-generated view out of it. So let me do one thing. I will create one Visual Studio 2019 project, because in 2022, if you have 2019 installed in the system, by right clicking and auto generating view, it will not allow. There is a bug in Visual Studio 2022. You have to uninstall all the libraries, and you have to install all latest libraries along with uninstalling 2019. So I have to have two versions in my system for some purpose. So to overcome that conflict, I'm just preparing a project in Visual Studio 2019. Process is same. If you have 2022 alone, then this is not required. You have to do whatever I'm doing now in 2019, you have to do it in 2022. So let me go to web and go for .NET Core. I will name it as model MVC underscore model annotations. Just for your understanding, I'm writing 2019. Okay. Let me save it in desktop. Select the MVC. So when you have multiple versions installed, then particularly razor view, when you create, it will show some conflict, razor engine conflict. So lower version 2019 if you create, it will not show conflict. Higher version if you try, it will show conflict. So what I will do is I will create one model here and copy paste that code. User detail, adding a controller. So give the name of the controller as um, model annotations example controller. Now create the object and call it. I'll make two functions. Let's say public action result create, and our class name is user detail. Control dot, take the namespace, return view. So two function will create, one is for HTTP GET, one is for HTTP POST. Here I will give nothing, just to display the blank screen, and here I will give something to submit. So should I make it HTTP GET, and here I will make HTTP POST. Makes sense? Now we have to create the object of the model and then call it. So model class name, and here I believe we are returning one string. All right. The rest of things we will see what to do. So now let's generate one auto-generated scaffolded view. So right click. Okay, before going to build, before going to create the view, let's build once. Build or rebuild, anything is fine. So usually to overcome this conflict, what I used to do there, I used to right click and then create a folder in the view, and under that folder I used to add view manually, right? That is also fine, but lot of coding you have to write yourself. But if you want to go for some auto generated view, then you can go with like this. Right click, add view, either first one or second one, any one is fine, both name is same only. Now go for razor view, uh, here you go. You can see some templated views names are there. If it is a create view, go for create view. And if you are creating, then for what class you are creating, that also you mention here. So that automatically it will generate the view. You need not to type from your side. Okay, so just add it. Like at the rate model, at the top you give for every view what kind of model you want to pass. So those things automatically decide because you selected the class name from the drop down. So at the rate model, uh, user detail, whatever the class name, it will automatically write in the line number 1. Then below also that form and all, it will automatically prepare. All the text box it will automatically put. Along with that, whatever annotations you might have applied, those annotations also will take care. So let's generate it. Should not show conflict. So it generated automatically one view, which is called scaffolding view or auto generated view. So can you see, I didn't type anything, automatically typed it. And you can see general HTML tag form it has given. If you want, you can change it to HTML helper also. Now here, if you see, these are all our text boxes, input type equal to text and all that. But if you see, automatically added one span tag for every text box. So based on what annotations you have given in this property, it will pick it and plug it. ASP dash validation for. Okay, that means whatever validation applied in that name property of the model class, it will come and sit here. Similarly, another span tag with ASP dash validation for date of birth. So DOB is your property name of the model, but in that property, if there is any validations applicable, annotations applicable, then it will bring and plug it here. Like that, it will automatically add these 3 things. One is label, one is text box itself, and one is your validation, if any. Okay. If no validation also, still it will apply this because scaffolding view applies this. Nothing will happen, that is different thing, but it will apply span tag for every model property. Now let's put a breakpoint here and see how that is behaving. I think we have to add it as a default controller. So let me stop it and add as a default controller and default action method. So go to the here in 2019 you will see that program class has been divided into 2 parts. Few things has been taken in startup, few things is in program. But in 2022 both of these content they merged into program.cs only. Architecture no difference, only 2 files they merged into one file. So what should I do? I will go to startup and I will add it as my default controller, and even our create action method as the default controller and default action method. Now let's come back here. Already we have put a breakpoint in HTTP post. So it should first display the screen. After that, we will enter some invalid data intentionally, and we will see how it is behaving. Then we will see how to control those information. So to understand there is any error or not, okay, there is something called model state dot is valid. Model state, if you have any model and there you have some annotations, there is one class called model state. Under that there is a property called is valid. So if any one property is invalid as per the given annotations, then it will be false. I will implement that here, but before that just let me show you how it is behaving without writing that custom code. So we'll come here. By default it doesn't give any gap in between. If you want little, alignment, gapping, etc., that you have to do manually. So suppose I didn't do anything, I simply click create. Okay, so if I will continue, you will see whichever is violating the your defined messages, it will come and display here. Maybe in date of birth we might not have given any error message. That's why it is saying the value is invalid, the value is invalid, the value is invalid, something like that. So wherever no custom message, you can see in date of birth there is no custom message. If you give error message equal to something, your message will come. If you don't give, then its inbuilt message will come. So and so property is invalid, so and so property is invalid, like that it will come. Now we want to control those messages. That means we want to take some action based on those error messages. So since it is a server side validation, that means you have applied it in server side in the model annotations. So without submitting to the controller, it will not come to know that there is some issue. So it will come here. Once it came here, then you have to check that model state dot valid. So what I will do, I will take some bunch of code and put it there to check whether any error message is there. Focus on line number 32. Let me stop the application. I'll define one info or something, string message equal to string dot empty. Okay, so what I want here, I want to first check whether any error message is there. If nothing is there, no worry, you go ahead and save the data. Suppose here I will say obj model dot save user detail, and here I will say USR. That means if all good, then do this. It will not at all go inside this. Okay, so we have to say model state dot is valid. So I will say here if model state dot is valid equal to false. Okay, if at least one issue is there based on the annotations, then you come inside this. Now what it is doing inside this, there are two things here, nested loop. Why? Because first loop indicates how many property that many times. Imagine 10 property in your class, then 10 times this loop will run. Okay, but in each property you have the provision of applying multiple annotations. So inner loop will say in each state, imagine as per your model class, user ID is there, name is there, date of birth is there, and all that. So user ID, it will pick first. Who knows, in user ID itself 2-3 annotations are there. So not necessarily first annotation is wrong means second annotations will be also wrong. That's why nested loop. So first you go field by field. For each field, how many annotations are applicable? Out of those annotations, how many are error? If only one is there, that is no error, then it will not go inside at all. If two annotations are there for user ID, one is having error, one is not having error, then one time only it will go. So each state, that means each field you bring, for that field how many error, only that many times you go. So 10 annotations you have given for user ID, 7 are not matching, 3 are matching, so 7 times this loop will run. Now each time this inner loop runs, you are checking if message is empty. That means if nothing has been plugged into this message, first time it is happening. Out of 10 property, maybe only user ID is the first property. Inside user ID, out of 3 annotations, maybe only one annotation is failing. So for that annotation, failed annotation, it will say, is it empty? Which one? This temporary variable. Obviously it will be empty because first time it catch one invalid item. So now that each error from the dot errors property, it will pick one by one and loop through. So each error, dot error message, whatever it is, I'm just putting into this. If by chance second time it is coming, okay, what my intention here is, in this message MSG, I want to prepare comma separated error messages. Okay, comma separated error messages. So if somebody doesn't want to prepare that comma separated error message, this is not at all required. You can simply say, if it is false, then display some generic message, otherwise return to this particular function. But this is optional, but I'm just writing some logic to gather all invalid items and put it into one message property, message temporary variable, so that at the end this MSG will have all comma separated invalid messages. Whether it is your message or it is default message, that message will bring and it will plug into this by comma separated. So already we have a breakpoint here. Let's see how it is going to behave. So I will have another breakpoint here. So we'll debug once and see whichever is not matching condition, whether it is plugging into a comma separated string. Sometimes your customer may say, against each column don't display invalid, this is invalid, this is invalid, this is invalid, right? Imagine in a particular column called name, 3 annotations are invalid. Then don't you think here 3 messages will come, which is not looking good, not good idea. So they may say, don't display so lengthy messages for every text box and all. Do one thing, don't display anything near to text box, display one generic message that following fields are invalid or something. Then you can go for this process what I'm doing here. So now if I will say simply click on create, since lot of mistakes, because whichever required I'm not filling it, whichever range I'm not filling it, so many invalid issue will be coming here because I'm not entered anything. So where it is going, acha, this one should be at the end actually. I will delete this line guys, line number 28, because this time we want only if all are valid then only save it. That I have already included below. So don't consider this line number 28. We will delete it after execution. So is valid. Take the mouse and see what is happening here. Can you see? It is false. At least one property if it is invalid, one property, one annotations also invalid, then it will show is valid false. So as per this is valid false, it will take me to inside, and for each property now it is going to give me one state. In each state again it will give me how many annotations are there, and out of them how many errors are there, most importantly. Okay, correct things it will not loop through in the inner loop, only error things. So here you can see, for that property only one error is there. the value is invalid, something like that, because we might not have given any custom error message. So F10, F10, F10. It is first time because message was empty, so it came to if condition. Once it is added, next time onwards it will go to else condition. So come again. Then for second property, it will check how many errors. Again one error only. So only one time it will execute. Now tell me it will go to else, because already we have entered some message. So as of now message is this. The value is invalid. Uh, you know what? Here you will not come to know what is invalid. That's why always custom error message is better, because default error message will be like this only always. The value XYZ is invalid. Now we have not entered in XYZ or ABC anything, so it is giving value empty is invalid. But for which variable, we never know. That's why better always to give custom error message, so that you can give clearly the value for user ID is invalid or value for ID is invalid, something like that. Then go to top again. Now it will again check, is there any error message? It will say no, only one error message for second property. Now it came for third property. So for third property, all valid, it didn't do anything. For fourth property, there is one invalid, so it came inside and prepare a comma separated string. Right, like this it will go on preparing, and finally it will come here. I will just click on continue. Now check the message. So how many invalid items, it will go on displaying those into comma separated things. Okay, but doesn't look good because we have to give some proper messaging. User ID we have given the message, that's why can you see it is saying user ID is mandatory. Like that, if you give custom messages, it will prepare a comma separated sentence, and you can pass that to a view bag and you can display on the screen. So what I will do is I will come out of the loop. First thing is I will delete this one and call it in below. Second thing is here, after coming out of the loop, I will say if string dot is null or empty of message and negation symbol not, then please add that into a view bag. I will say invalid messages. Sorry. So I put a negation symbol at the beginning, right? So then you can take this view bag and then display on the screen also, just like this. Yeah. Uh, you can return before that itself. Here you can say return view. Yeah, yeah. Now here you go and display somewhere below or near to this button will display. All right. But if you are displaying this, then you should not display these things. You should delete these things. Okay. Either this or that. Both doesn't make any sense, right? So either you comment this or delete these things, this span tags, so that individual message will not come and display in each text box, and one combination of the messages, comma separated message you can display, or you can write it like this: invalid fields are like this. Okay, but in this case, to suit this sentence, you should give proper custom messages. Okay, invalid message is already you have written, and so here you need not to write user id mandatory this. So simply say user id, here you say name, here you say street address, like that. So that is totally up to you. If you don't want to give, then it will go for default error messaging. Yeah, any question, Monica? Didn't understand. Anything, it's all yours. Programming you understood. You just focus on this part, that if it is invalid, it will come inside. After that, how you are preparing, how your customer is expecting, totally up to you. All right, nothing rule or regulation, anything you can do. Anybody else? Sri, you have any question? Ha, you can. That's why inner loop we used, so that if two annotations both are failed, then two times it will execute for that property. Manish, you have any question? Uh-huh. Yeah, same thing. If you are writing ASP for, or you are writing HTML.textbox for, both are same. This will also render to HTML, that will also render to HTML. Exactly same. Latika, you have any question? Regular expression you are talking about? Okay. Uh-huh. Anyone means anyone. If you type a small p, over. If you write only capital P, over. Yeah. So allowed range is this, but any one character, because plus is not there. Arun, you have any question? Mm-hmm. This is for validating the data. It is not for generating the data. Generating the data, you have to write your own logic. This will not help. You want to generate one number, right? A number or alphanumeric, something like that. Acha, you want to validate that number, huh? So tell me what validation you want. हाँ, then हो गया ना. Cap 0 to 9, and then A to Z, A to Z. That means it should start with a number, any one number, and followed by a number, some alphabet will be there. That is your requirement, right? No problem. No problem. No problem. You can say 0 to 9, okay? Then A to Z, A to Z, that's it. So only starts with, you have to take care. Other things already it is taking care. A to Z, A to Z, 0 to 9 means that is what you are asking for. Should allow alphabet A to Z, A to Z as well as 0 to 9. But starts with, you give it first. That's it. So cap 0 to 9, A to Z, A to Z. That will solve your problem. And plus, if you want to allow multiple keystrokes. All right. Now coming to we can have 10 more minutes, right, guys? Up to 45 or so. Anybody have any problem? Okay. So I will take it as no problem. I will create one more notepad. You have to write your own rule, nothing called standard. I mean, whatever you want to define, you have to define. There is nothing called international standard. So if you understood all regex, you can prepare yourself. No issue. Okay. There is something called in the client side now. I'm coming back. So there is something called JQuery library. Uh, Last class when we applied JavaScript validation, most of the coding you are writing yourself. है ना? That function you have to write yourself, and all the logics, everything you have to write yourself. But going forward, when you see any commonly used functionality to be applied, uh, you have to check whether there is any library function for that particular functionality. So what jQuery open source community did, currently it is owned by Microsoft because it is got a huge demand in the market. But previously it was done by jQuery open source community. So what they did, they saw a lot of functionality is written by each developer. Okay. Um like you are a developer, I am a developer, somebody else is a developer. So most of functionality is repeatedly done by every developer. So what they did, they said, why not we will define some predefined JavaScript functions, okay, and we will give it as an open source library. Either we'll keep it in some community site and give the link, or if somebody wants to own it, we'll give it directly in the editor itself. So currently Microsoft has owned it. So if you create one Visual Studio solution, automatically it gives the library over there. But if somebody wants to go for PHP or Java or any other technology, then they have to download that open source library and they can embed it inside their solution. That is a different story. But assume that you are using that library either directly, indirectly, or by default added, or you have to add it manually, whatever it is. So when you added that library called jQuery library, jQuery library, when I say it is JavaScript library only, it is containing some functions, some if necessary, some icons, CSS, fonts, all those things they have taken care from their own. Only thing is you have to use it. So JavaScript library with hundreds of inbuilt JavaScript functions. Okay. So here in Visual Studio, particularly in our .NET, how to embed it. Let me show you. To use those libraries, any screen, suppose you want to go for, this time I will go to again Visual Studio 2022. That 2019 I did only for that conflict purpose. Otherwise, we are going to 2022. I'll show you where exactly you have to add the library. Then you are open to use inbuilt functions just like your own functions. How to call the function already you know, but I'll tell you where you go and map the JavaScript library functions. So jQuery is nothing different thing actually. jQuery is also JavaScript only. Only difference is here we write our custom JavaScript functions. there it is already written hundreds or thousands of functions. We are just using it. Suppose this is your last class JavaScript function, right? I'm going there. This is your own function, isn't it? So when you are defining your custom function, you are customizingly calling it. But when you use JQuery function, there is little different way of calling the JQuery function. I will tell you that. First, I will show you where exactly it is available. If you go to www root, guys, it shows low audio support for me. Is my voice is audible properly? Okay. All right. So go to www root. Under this, there will be something called JS. Okay. So here you will see by default, one site.js you will available. It will be available. If you go to lib library, there also will see something called jQuery. Under that, one folder will be there called dist. So if you go there, you will see jQuery.js. So if you open this jQuery.js, just open it, you will see lot of hundreds of inbuilt functions are available here. Already that jQuery open source community has defined all these functions. Version to version, time to time they are going on adding more and more functions. That means the way is, first of all, you have to add this library in your page. If you are using any layout page, like any master page kind of thing, where all your pages are child page and that page is parent page, like that, then perhaps one time including in that parent page is okay. There is something called layout page or master page. But as of now, you are doing individual pages, right? Create, product, all pages are individual. So what you have to do, you have to go and add it in the individual pages just like this. Let me show you. If you expand that, you will see something called jQuery.main.js. Okay. So if you drag this jQuery.main.js to that area, single click will show you the page itself, but drag will take the link here. So what I will do is I will just make a gap here somewhere and I'll just drag this. Okay. So it took that starting from the tilde operator. Can you see? It is saying in the parent directory, go to a folder called lib. Inside that there is a folder called jQuery. Inside that there is a folder dist. So you need not to type it. It should automatically come. Imagine this. There is something called jQuery.main.map. Okay. So they have divided into many library files also. So if you want to take only commonly used jQuery functionalities, only this is enough. Now let me tell you, if somebody is dragging this file and dragging that file, what is the difference? If I'll drag this file, okay, it will take all the things. And if I'll drag that file, it will take only that file. So imagine I'm taking this. Okay, see the difference. This is jQuery.js, this is jQuery.main.js. Usually, during your debugging, okay, if you are taking this jQuery.js, you can do better debugging. For example, you got some issue in some particular jQuery function. Then if you are going to jQuery.js, it is the expanded format of the same functionalities. Let me show you both the files at a time. You can understand. I double click this file. It is open here. Now I am double clicking main.js file. It will open here. If you see, content are same only, both. Only difference is this is in a readable format. That means wherever enter, wherever carriage return, wherever extra space, wherever curly bracket blockings, etc., it will give you, so that you can easily understand this function is starting from here and ending here. This function is starting here, ending here. So you can search and easily modify this function also. It is modifiable, okay, inbuilt function, but if necessary, if you are master in jQuery, you are sure that if I will go there and modify, I will not delete one curly bracket and forget it to again put it, then you are good to go. But If you are not sure, then you should not go and change it. If you are changing also, you have to be careful that where is open curly bracket, close curly bracket, which is what, those things you understand properly, and then you are changing and saving it. So those functions are available here without any extra space, extra carriage return, extra blocks, anything. Okay. What is the purpose of this minified file? Basically, when you go for any third party service like cloud deployment or anything, that time it is advisable not to take this kind of files. So that time your physical directory may be having both the files, no problem. But while including that file in the actual page, if you include minified file, it will be faster than the expanded version of that file. So most of times what we do when you develop the application, always your pages will be embedded inside something called layout page. So in layout page, one time activity only you have to do. It's not like in 100 pages you are going and adding this. One layout page will be there. In that layout page, you have to add this. So only one time. So what you do during your debugging, development, testing, you add this and let it take some extra time. It's not like second or something. It will take some extra microsecond. That's it. Na? So no problem. So you go there and use this, right? And while publishing this application, take the minified file so that it will generate whatever your customized JS file, its minified version, and it will put it into your release folder. So when we will release it, that time we will see how it is publishing and putting the minified version. So in release publishing part, always it will take minified version, but while debugging and developing, it is always better to take the expanded version. Even though you have no customization, still you take this so that if you want to search some function, not necessarily everybody will remember all the functions, right? Thousands of function name. How can somebody remember it? So he can search in that jQuery file. Ki, Acha, I want to hide some element. What should I call? So just search the word hide. Check it out. Okay. So whether it is getting any information, or Google it that what is the function name in the jQuery for this operation. Suppose you got some clue, then take that word and search it inside this so that it will be easier. If you are searching in this, somewhere it will take and show you, no problem, wherever it might be, but it will not a better readable format, right? Wherever, whichever is to be deleted, not mandatory to write, those things they have removed it. Functionality wise, same, but debugging wise, this is better, and release wise, this is better. So currently you are in debug mode, that means you are developing. So you should use that JS instead of minified version. That is one thing. After that, whenever you are writing any function, there are certain rules to be followed up. Okay. That rules I will tell you to use inbuilt jQuery functions. So assume that you created a application, dragged that minified version or whatever version, and it's already available there. That means it activated your jQuery library functions over here. Now to write the code for jQuery, little rules you have to follow up here. I'll tell you here. So first, add the library link into your page. This page may be directly content page also, can be layout page also. If you have layout page, you have used layout page. Layout page means one framing page, parent page for all the pages, like to put some header, footer, etc. So in that layout page, you one time drag it over. No need to drag it in every content page. But if you have no layout page, you have not used any layout page, then every content page you have to drag it. Now once you did that, then follow below steps to define and use jQuery functions. Few things you have to define also, few things you have to use also. Use means inbuilt function use. Define means your own code you have to define. So how to do that? First is how to start. Always your jQuery function starts with dollar symbol. Okay, always jQuery code starts with a dollar symbol. Okay, dollar symbol. Like suppose you want to start a function called ABC, then dollar, then you have to start whatever the function. Even inbuilt function, suppose something function is there, you want to call that, then dollar, that function name. So dollar you should not miss. Like um, in CSHTML for using C#, we use @ Similarly here you have to use dollar. Most of cases you will see. And apart from that, to identify any element, I will just tell you the rules and next class will implement it. To identify any element in the form or page, whatever you say, use below process. Imagine somebody saying, check whether text box data is valid or not. Why to check the text box data? First of all, you have to identify that text box in the page. So sometimes we identify by ID. Then you have to use hash symbol. Sometimes we identify by CSS, cascading style sheet. I will tell you how to apply cascading style sheet. So there is something called cascading style sheet. So CSS class. Okay, font, format, bold, italic, underline, border, background color, anything you want to apply, that you use to apply through something called cascading style sheet class. So if you want to identify that element by cascading style sheet class, then you have to go for dot. Okay, so then another is called by tag, HTML tag. To identify one element by HTML tag, this is I'm using for arrow mark, not for symbol. Symbol is this one which I'm putting right hand side. So give that tag itself, like suppose P, then P tag. Suppose div tag, then you have to write div, like that. So I will write here mention that HTML tag, whichever you want to identify. For example, somebody says there are lot of div available in this page, right? Lot of div available in this page. I want all the divs should be shown when page will be loaded, and all the divs will be closed when button will be clicked. All the divs means, why should I identify ID? Why should I identify CSS? I should identify HTML tag only, because all the divs I'm saying, or all the paragraph tag I'm saying. But sometimes somebody says, no, I don't want for all. Okay, I want for group of elements. There are 10 text boxes, but 3 text boxes are having same style sheet. I want wherever so and so style has been implemented, those text boxes, please hide, or please change the color, or please apply the border. Something action on those text box only, which are all applying this specified style sheet, suppose. Then out of 10 text boxes, not even you want all 10 text boxes, the action, not even one text box, that action. You want few text boxes out of all. Then you should identify by CSS. If there is not required also, you put one CSS without actually existing that CSS class. And by CSS class, you apply whatever action you want to apply. So all the elements of that category, then you have to identify HTML tag. Some of the element of that category you want to take action, identify CSS. Only one element you want to apply any action. Like you said that, hey, I have 10 text boxes, but that text box whose ID is txt name, please hide that, or please apply some style in that, or please collect data from that, please check the validation for that. So at a time, three text box you are not doing. Only one text box you are identifying and then applying the validation, for example. So that time you have to use hash. Okay. So these are the common rules. Apart from this, if somebody says, I know jQuery, that means he knows hundreds of functions, he remembers hundreds of functions by experience. Okay. So inbuilt functions, as I said, thousands of functions are there. Imagine you are working 2 years in jQuery, how many functions you might have come across inbuilt functions. Maybe in 5 years experience, you might have come across more functions. So that is called experience difference. Otherwise, when you say using jQuery versus not using jQuery, these are the rules and regulations. Rest is, once you started implementing these rules, used some 4 or 5 functions, then you came to know that how to apply this rule in order to use those inbuilt functions. That also we'll see next class. After that, it is all up to the experience. Whichever, you know, uh, functionality, inbuilt functionality you came across, started using, maybe you next day will say that I know this. But yeah, you can easily get it either by searching that JS file, because it's completely open source. You can search any functionality if you know at least one word what you want. Somebody says, I want to apply animation, man. It's not that our course is having animation, but just for example. So search it by animate. No bomb blast will happen. Somewhere you will get some function and check the name of the function and use that and try. So like that, you can use more, you can, explore more and more in jQuery inbuilt functions. But what we are going to use here in our course is client side, all the validations, applying style, applying validation, whatever we need for our purpose. But those who are UI professionals, they know, thousands of functionalities in jQuery, because they will work in animation, style and so on. So in our course, we have how to use JavaScript for validations of the form, and how to use jQuery for validations of the form, as well as we have something called service call. Okay, we say it as jQuery Ajax callback and postback. So those also we will see. But first thing is, whatever rules and regulation we understood today, any common function we will use, and we'll see how to apply it in one identifier, means one text box or one paragraph tag, and how to apply in few paragraph tag or few text box or few out of all, and how to apply all of the text box or all of the paragraphs of that particular page where you are applying. So there are 3 category always. Okay, even style sheet also there are 3 category. When you apply for one, that is called inline style sheet. When you apply for few or couple of things, then that is called embedded style sheet. When you apply for all across the application, that time you say it as linked style sheet. So similarly here in jQuery also they have 3 category. Either for one element you are applying some action, or few element you are applying some action out of or all out of all you are applying the action. That action may be anything. So we'll see how to apply this rule. Let me save it. Yeah, Manish, you have any question? Not necessarily. Regex is just a format. There is nothing called server side or client side. If you want to use that in JavaScript also, you can use it.